Welcome back to another episode of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. Thanks for being here. Today, my guest is Sid Mohassib. Welcome to the show, Sid.
Pleasure to be with you, Mike.
Pleasure to have you. So, I see you've written a couple of books. One of them is You're Not Them, The Authentic Entrepreneur's Way. And the other one is The Caterpillar's Edge, Evolve Again, and Thrive in Business. I love that title, by the way. Tell me what inspired you to write these books?
I've been around for quite a while, a long time, and I've built a number of companies. I have been an investor in a number of companies, and I've been advisor to the Fortune 500 executives for many years. And what I'm seeing is this notion that we forget the fundamentals of business and focus on things that are less important, and forget the fact that we have to evolve always in order to be competitive. So it's a collection, if you would, of thoughts and ideas that focuses on the first book you mentioned is focused on using data, using analytics, but focusing on this notion of being able to evolve always, and evolve in the way you approach business, evolve in the way you approach using technology. The last chapter, that book is actually a few years old. It's about 5-6 years old, and it was before the hoopla on AI. But the last chapter, I'll say the 2-minute warning. Hey, get with it. It's coming. Here's how it is. Here's how it would unfold. And some people call me a visionary now. I just think that if we read the tea leaves properly, we're all visionaries. The second book is around entrepreneurship. And the title says it all. It says, "You're not them. You're not Elon Musk. You're not Bill Gates. None of us are exactly the same. We come from different places, have different experiences, have different capabilities, have different shortcomings. Some are from wealthy families, some start with nothing. We're all different. And what helps us succeed is our own entrepreneurship philosophy, essentially. And the book is about building that entrepreneur philosophy.
So what do you think it is that keeps businesses from evolving? Because I see this as a problem with many of my clients. What do you think keeps people from evolving?
That's a very good question. There's, I think, a few factors. Let me start with ego first. If you look at the S&P 500, the S&P 500 was created, I think, in 1957, if I'm not mistaken. So it's 60 some odd years old. And out of the companies that were the 500 best companies picked 60 some odd years ago, the CEOs were the best, the products were the best, everything was the greatest, and the best. Only 15% are left. That means 85% of them are no longer a part of S&P 500. And out of those 15%, only 2% actually beat the average performance of S&P 500. So first, there's clearly a problem. The problem begins with this addiction to sameness, if you would. It's, we're doing well, we're doing great. Don't break it if don't fix it if it ain't broke. The short-sightedness of our management systems that we've performed. The focus, and this is my new thing, by the way, that I'm writing a lot of articles about, is the focus on profits as opposed to reasons. Now, every business is there to make money. That's, even if it's non-for-profit, it's making money to do some good. But the focus is not at the right place. You as a company are have zero control over the revenue you generate. You know who's in control? The buyer is in control. They make the decision if they like to do business with you, if they want to buy your product. And they make that decision based on what I call an exchange, a bundle of satisfaction. They say, what you're giving me is worth $1, $100, or $100,000. They make that decision. So they have a reason for doing that transaction for you. They have a reason. What we focus on is the outcome of that reason, which is the profit or the revenue. If we shift our perspective on the reason, we'll look at the world entirely differently. Now, it's not just the customers that have that exchange relationship with us, it's our employees. We assume we hire employees. But the fact of the matter is, they agree to get a job from us. They agree.
That's a two-way relationship.
Yep. They agree that, hey, I'm going to take this compensation or benefits package and work for Mike. But they didn't agree that they're going to give you 100% of their creativity. They didn't agree that at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're going to work and think about what you do. They agreed based on what they think is the fair exchange is. Same thing with your partners, same thing with your investors, same thing with the society. There is an exchange relationship in all aspects of a business. I call them the 5 pillars. And that changes the role of leaders to, let's call it a conductor of a symphony. So each one of these pillars, imagine it's an instrument that somebody plays. It's a music. It's a you know, and we're all, these 5 pillars are the orchestra playing this music we call the business. Each one has to be in tune, and not everyone gets the same airtime. You know, the guitar may play 2 minutes, and the saxophone plays 3 minutes, and the drum plays. It's different. So there is this exchange that's always going on. So the second, if you would, I told you the first is this addiction and ego. The second reason that people don't evolve is they forget that the world is changing, and they're trying to manage it as opposed to embrace it. So these things get out of whack, and somebody comes in and takes over their business because they're no longer relevant. While the world is changing, they are focused on, let me maximize my profit. And that creates a problem. That creates a problem. And the bigger the companies get, the harder it is to shift, to maneuver, to change course.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I liked your analogy of a symphony, because I kind of agree with you on that. I think that like I have clients that tell me all the time, oh, well, you know, we're trying to build, but we have a hard time hiring people because our company culture overall isn't that great. And I said, so what are you doing about making your department culture great? You know, it's got to start somewhere.
That's right.
Maybe be the example for the company rather than just being like, I can't do anything about this, you know. But what do you think is like the #1 mistake that companies make with their staff?
#1 mistake is, and you may think this is playing with words, but I believe it is right. We say we have to empower our employees. On the surface, it's a good idea. But the fact is, that places the power in us, the leaders, the owners, the bosses, the managers. That means you don't have any power, Mike, and I'm going to give you power. I'm going to empower you. The fact of the matter is, people have the power. They have the power of creativity. They have the power of doing. They're on the front line. They're doing what they have the power to completely screw up our business in 2 seconds with the wrong decision or the intentional right decision. So the idea is we have to be facilitators as opposed to enforcers, if you would. We look at things like people are generally idiots and we're smarter than them. So we have to, yeah, there are certain rules and things that works in a business. Yes, you have to have processes. Yes, people have to follow the processes. But at the end of the day, it's not the process. The processes allow us to maximize outcome. So if you have a system, and we could talk about technology, wherever those technology elements are going to help us automate, help us do things faster, better. But what goes into that engine is a series of things that are driven by people's biases. And that's what that's where the big errors come. So the key is to be able to realize, again, these exchange rates with your employees as well. If the exchange is right, if the employee feels that they're getting what they want to get, it's a combination of people work for Google and they take a pride that they're working for Google, because on their resume that's going to be staying with them forever, and it's going to look good. Some are younger, they're looking for options. Some are older, they're looking for more stability. Someone has a wife or a husband or a child who is sick, and they're looking for better benefits.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was wondering though what you think is more important. So there's kind of a movement afoot in the working world, where they say, working 40 hours a week and like forcing people to work 40 hours a week, and basing everything around how much time people work isn't the right approach, and that the right approach should be about how much work gets accomplished. What do you think about that?
I think I've always as I mentioned, I've run a few companies and done lots of. I am of the belief that I don't care how long it takes you to do the job. If it takes you an hour, God bless.
Yeah.
Wonderful, as opposed to 6 days. So I am of the belief that time, because people stretch. I think it's Peter's principle that people stretch the work to fill out the work, the time that they have available. There is truth to that. It's not just words. But there is something that's lost when we're not together. And I see this because I do work with early stage companies quite a bit. And nowadays everybody is remote, everybody. That creativity, that when you're in one room and one area, is much, much more powerful, if you would. The momentum, the dynamics of it, the speed getting to a greater. It's very different when you have people in one room. You can't do that on Zoom. You can't get up and say, well, let me do this, and then the other guy says something else, and then you go to the restroom and come back and you have another idea. It's just the nature. So I agree that the time should not be the limitation, but I think that that should be to an extent where creativity and innovation is not harmed. There's a thing that I see a lot of people focus on, and I understand why. It's this notion of work-life balance, that we have to have a balance. Now you can see that I'm an analogy guy. I use a lot of analogies. I'm going to go back to that symphony idea. It's about harmony. It's not about balance. Balance requires two things to be exactly equal. Harmony means sometimes it's a little bit here and sometimes it's a little bit there.
Exactly.
And it's up and down and movement. The fundamental thing about balance is that you have two things and they're in somehow opposition. And I have to balance these two things. But if we don't look at our work as the enemy, as something that's against life, then we don't have to do this. We're in a harmonizing business, not in a balancing business. Balancing requires us to say, okay, I've spent 2 hours and 17 minutes here. I got to spend 2 hours and 17 minutes with my kid. No, maybe you're getting in 10 hours one day,
Right.
right? So that's how we look at work, because we look at it as something that we do to earn a living, not something that would help us experience something new, grow, innovate, create, be better, because we've been trained to look at things this way.
Well, it's like your concept of balance and harmony is brilliant because I actually use the term work-life harmony as well.
Good.
Because it's like relationships. You hear people all the time say relationships require compromise, and I disagree because compromise infers that somebody's giving something up. And I actually think relationships should be about collaboration. And I'm talking about any relationship too. I mean, friendships, work relationship, romantic relationship. It should be about collaboration. Nobody should have to give up entirely on something. But like if I'm all the way over here and you're over here, the objective is to bring us together. And we're not going to do that by you having to compromise on some things and me compromise on some things. The way we do it is we interweave what we want together, and then we become like this nice rope that's stronger, and you can move forward. I think you're right. People talk about balance, and then they want to know, but hold on a second. Now this week they're making me work 60 hours. Well, yeah, but then the next week you might only work 30 if you're working for a company that's looking for work-life harmony, and that's up to the individual
Yeah.
to make happen,
So,
right?
so Mike, I've never heard anybody say what you just said, because this is something that I actually, and as an old guy, they tell me I have a very wonderful life with my wife, and everybody says, "How do you guys do it?" And when people are getting married, the first thing I say, "Hey, can I give you one advice?" And they say, "What?" I said, "I know I'm an old guy, but let me give you this piece of advice and consider it, because if you do this for 2, 3 weeks, you would see the results yourself." And here's what it is. I say, marriage is not about compromise. And they everyone say, "Oh, what do you mean?" I said, "You should not compromise." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, compromise, every time you compromise, it's like taking one drop of water, putting it in this cup. And then I put a cup, you put a drop. Guess what? After a while, this is going to overflow, and then you can't control it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't put a drop, if you want to go visit your mom, and I'm your wife, okay. Is that going to make you happy? Yes. So if you're happy and I love you, I'm going to be happy because you're happy.
Exactly.
So this is an absolute selfish thing I'm doing. I'm doing it to make myself happy because you're happy. And there is no, and never a drop of water gets into this cup would never get filled.
Well, it's so true because like so many people worry about what the other person did for them instead of worrying about what they do for the other person. And I feel like if you're in a mutually beneficial relationship where both sides are happy and things are functioning correctly, you should be worrying more about what you do for the other person because they will in turn do for you. And that's how collaboration works, right? Is they're going to look for opportunities to help you get to your goals. You're going to look for opportunities to help them get to their goals. And neither of you has to give up something. It always makes me sad when I hear people say, oh, I went to this new company and I wanted to get this certification, but they say it's not important. So I'm just going to throw it away. Why do that? Like go ahead and do the things that you need to do. I mean, I look back at when, I was a CTO for 20 years and I had a CEO who didn't understand why, like, I would take the help desk phone once a month. And why was I still writing code and all that? And there's a lot of reasons for that were customer service based. But also, I wanted to keep myself sharp because that job wasn't going to last forever. And who knows what the future held? I might have to go back and into doing software development. Well, I
Mm.
couldn't exactly do that with how fast it moves if I spent 10 years not writing code, right?
Yeah.
It's like today. I've been out of the management of tech people business for 8 years, and I have not written other than some CSS code. I have not written a line of code in 8 years. If I had to suddenly go do a software development job, it would take me some time to bring myself up to speed. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that I was on the cutting edge. So I think I like what you said about that. No, I did have a question though. Like you talked about, working remotely doesn't work. And I tend to agree with you. I think full-time remote work, it has squelched the creativity of businesses that are out there. It just has. It's you're right. It's a lot easier to be like walking from the bathroom and going, you know what, I'm going to stop by so-and-so's office because I have an idea that I want to bounce off of them, versus getting them on the phone or some text-based messaging system. So do you think that it's better to do like a hybrid where maybe once or twice a week they're working off site and the rest of the time they're in the office? Or should it just be 100% on site? Which do you think would be best if you were running the company?
Yeah. So there is another angle to this being at the office, and let me explain to you. I was the head of innovation for the strategy group for KPMG for a while, and I had this conversation with the CEO of KPMG about and we at that time had lots of offices. You can unplug and plug. It's the same way Deloitte has the same thing. PwC. You can go everywhere, plug and unplug your computer, and boom, that.
Right.
But you know the old fashioned. You have a picture of your wife and your kid and your dog on your desk. You have somebody next to you in the next cubicle or the next office, and you go out to lunch together. That's how relationships are built. That's how soldiers win in battlefield, because they know each other. I don't know you, Mike, with
Right.
you're at the other side of the world, and we have a Monday morning Zoom. I don't know you. I'm not willing to go to the end of the world for you. But if somebody is next door to me or next cubicle to me, and I see you every day, and we have our pictures, and this is ours, and there is a relationship. If I'm plugging and unplugging a laptop somewhere, I can go anywhere. And so there's no loyalty. And we say, why isn't there loyalty? If you look at the average time that people now work out of college, particularly tech people, it's a year and a half, because there's no relationship. Now, this is why we separate work and life, because there is no relationship, there is no connection. So, do I like people to be, at work all the time? Yes, I do. Is it practical in these days? No, it's not, because people live 2 hours away, and they have to be in traffic for 4 hours, and it's just not practical. So I think a combination of things, and it depends on the time, and it depends on, do we have a deadline, or do we launching something, and do we, I mean, what are we doing? What's if we are a team, then the give and take and the harmony is not absolutely Tuesdays and Wednesdays you do this, Thursdays and Fridays you do that. That's again creating boundaries around things. Now, you mentioned something about workers and about the people and about what we do. I think this is all changing. And I mean, you didn't get me here to give people marriage advice about compromise.
Right.
So, so let's focus on technology. Let's focus on this issue that is facing us smack in the face, and that's AI. Our life is changing. It will be changing quite a bit more. It is not a matter of it's not a matter of just automation. It's a matter of an entirely different way of looking at how we perform and how we operate. So let's say we have all these cars driving by their own. Well, maybe it doesn't happen 5 years from now. It happens 10 years from now. Doesn't happen 10 years from now. It happens 20 years from now. It's going to happen. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to sit in the back and play with our Instagram and Facebook. Is that what we're going to do? Because we don't have to drive, but we're sitting in the back seat doing that. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the customer calls, I mean, attorneys are at risk, because what do? They go through, they got accountants. It's all cognitive, rule-based bunch of stuff. So, okay, accountants wouldn't go away in the next 5 years. They'll go away sometime. So what are we doing with this notion of our evolution? Where are we going? What are we doing? Where are we going? And are we mentally ready, or are we arguing about, oh, my job is going away? Now, I have, I also teach at university. And, this year I told the kids, hey, I don't care if you go use Chat GPT to write code for this thing. I don't care. What I care about is what the outcome that you produce is. Does
Right.
it have business value? Is it doing something? And if, hey, if you can do it faster than the next guy, God bless you, go do it.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I can remember leading teams and having people come to me and say, what do you think of this way of writing this function? Does it work? Is it fast? Then as long as those two things are a yes, do it your way. I don't have to, I'm not the one writing the code.
Yeah.
So I kind of agree with you. Like, let's think about this. People are like, oh, you shouldn't let them use Chat GPT to come up with this solution or that solution. Well, why not? It's not much different than going to Google, searching like, how do I calculate, what's the algorithm for X, whatever the topic is that they're trying to get. And then they get something from Google. Half the time, the person that answered the question wasn't paying any attention to syntax or anything else. So they kind of get the answer, but then they're sort of like in this spiral of trying to like, well, how come it won't work? Why doesn't it work?
So
But
if we don't want to,
ChatGPT fixes that.
yeah, if we don't want to use that, let's all go back to the library days.
Get a book.
And it just doesn't make any sense. This is a trend. This is something. The train has left the station. So if we argue, and this faces the techie people, I think a little more. They're now kind of realizing it that, hey, wait a minute. I'm a coder. I'm good at coding. Well, maybe this thing is going to replace my ability to code. Or data scientists have an issue. There's a lot of things coming together. And no, you're not immune of evolving. You have to evolve too. The thing is this idea of, your show is about having the technology edge, right? So the thing is that edge is moving.
Exactly. All
The
the
edge
time.
is not a place where you say, okay, I go on top of this building and this is the edge. This edge is moving. So competitive advantage in the future is not necessarily about sustainable competitive advantage, creating a thing and staying with it. It's about how do you have a sustainable organization that can evolve with technology, that can push the envelope. Yeah, 30 years ago, we were doing certain things in automation, and then we had other things, and then the RPA came, and it's moving. It's not if I get the edge once, then hallelujah, let's go home and let's just, and that's how companies start going down the hill, because they think, oh, I got this technology implemented, and therefore this is it. I am it.
Yeah, they sit on their laurels and they don't evolve like we talked about earlier. And I think AI is the perfect example of companies not evolving. Things like forbidding the use of Chat GPT. And like I was saying, I think Chat GPT at least would give you it'd at least try to give you an answer that was workable versus Googling something and going, oh,
Now
wait a second, this doesn't work.
there are problems with it. There's, yes, it hallucinates. Yes, it does. It
Yes.
gives you the wrong answer and thinks it's the right answer. But a lot of things that we've done has, we use a knife, it can cut us. So shouldn't we not use a knife?
Right.
So we got to be careful. We got to look at things, and then it evolves over time. And maybe when we were first driving a car, it would break a lot more, and now it doesn't. And now, right, things move towards a perfection, but the perfection is by itself moving. So we're moving towards a goal that's never achievable. We're never at the edge. We're only getting close to the edge.
Well, even vehicles today, for years now have been technology devices. And the goal was to, computerize more and more and more of the vehicle so that there's less moving parts, which means less places for it to break down, which means more consistent consistent availability of your vehicle,
That's right.
rather than you go out one day and it just doesn't start.
So, Mike,
Um,
I remember I remember this was maybe 95, 94, 95. I'm aging myself. I'm an old guy. I've been around for a while. And I was invited to this quote unquote investor mover shaker thing in Florida, in Boca Raton. And they had this fancy place in the auditorium and this, and there were like 100 of us, and then some companies would come and present. One of those companies, and I believe it was the CTO of the company. It wasn't Jeff Bezos, it was somebody else who was presenting the vision of Amazon. Okay? And Amazon back then was just doing books.
Books, right?
And this guy got up, and now you can imagine this room was maybe 100, 150 people in it. And they dimmed the light, and this guy was with a spotlight on him, and he started, and a massive big screen behind him. And then he was clicking and saying, yeah, we're going to start from here, and then we're going to sell electronics, and then we're going to sell clothing, and then we're going to sell this. And every time he does that, this thing is lighting up. And then we're going to go with one warehouse, and now we have 4 warehouses, and by this we have, and all of a sudden it was like, have you seen these intergalactic war games that the things are going in every, and it was like red and yellow and blue, and it was just amazing. So what the heck? There was a guy sitting next to me, and I later found that he was the CEO of a giant retail business, which went out of business years later. Giant, I mean. Okay? And the guy turned back to me and says, what is this guy smoking? So there was a break. We had coffee, and he came to me, and we stood, we got coffee. And he says, they don't understand the retail business. Retail business is this and that. And people like to touch, people like to do. He had no notion of where this thing is going, and completely saying, I know this is the way this business is run. The reason people fail and they don't evolve is because they think they know.
Yeah, they need to have the answers. And it's interesting you mentioned Amazon, because here in Vegas we have the T-Mobile Arena, and when you go to any event there are these beverage, for lack of a better term, kiosks, but they're like probably 5 by 10 columnar sections, and you come in on one side and you scan your credit card, and then they ask you how many people in your party. There's 2 of us, and they walk you through like this like door opens up. And so yesterday I asked the girl, I was at a game, and I asked the girl, how does this work? I don't understand. Because what it does is you scan your credit card, you go through, you pick your drinks and your snacks that you want, and you walk out the other way, and it charges your card. Well, I asked her, how does it work? And she said, well, as your party's coming through the gate, you've scanned your card. It then takes video of everyone in your party. And then there's 100 cameras in this booth watching everything you guys are doing. And as you're taking product, it's recognizing what that product is without scanning a barcode, QR code, anything. It's just seeing what product you took. And when you walk out the other door, it closes your ticket. I think it's amazing. I mean, that's a company, like you said, they used to sell books online, and now they have this super advanced payment system that is revolutionary. I mean, can you imagine what that will do for like a Subway? They don't even have to have a cashier. You just walk in, place your order, grab your food.
So what do we do? Do we push back, Mike, on those as the cashiers? Do we push back against the technology? Or do we get with it as humanity, that we are evolving to a point where it's not our physical. See, we have evolved over the tens of thousands of years physically in having our hands work this way, our jaw, our this, our head, and now it's time for us to evolve from a different dimension, mentally. We can't be sitting back in our cars and playing with Instagram or check. We can't stop progress because somebody is going to losing the job, that cashier, because this is replacing it. The last number I saw was a $15 trillion economic impact for AI every year by 2030. Let me put that in context. $15 trillion. That is almost as much as 1.4 billion Chinese working every year.
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
That is
massive,
that. Mike. That's massive.
Yeah, no,
you can't stop that.
Well, and there's no reason to. And I think, people worry. And I think if they were to think back, there's a lot of industries that have come and gone, and the workers, they evolve and they switch to a different, they take their skills that they had and they upscale to a different industry. So I think that the mindset part of it for people is going to be the biggest challenge, because like you said before, people think they know the answer. And so they're like, hey, I've done this before without AI. Why do I need AI? Well, maybe because it can do, like one thing I can mention Amazon again with AI. I noticed recently that, I've always seen their reviews, and I say to myself, all right, well, this star rating, what does it really mean? And like, how many of these people just put this rating in here for stupid reasons? Like, I never understand why someone receives a defective item and gets it replaced, and then they rate the item a 1 star, yet it works. I never have gotten that, whatever. But now Amazon's taking those reviews and they have an AI tool that's summarizing them at the top, and it's saying, buyers say, and then they have a summary of it. Well, it's so much more helpful than the star rating, because I can see things like, oh, there's trouble with it charging, or it doesn't connect well to your phone, or this is one of the fewer returned items that we have here on Amazon. All those things help you make a purchase decision that you maybe wouldn't make otherwise.
You
So
see,
anyway,
we started with the bundle of satisfaction and the exchange. You see how they changed in order to be relevant to you as the customer.
yes.
That's bundle of satisfaction in changing. One day the star rating was very good, the other day it's not good. If that relevance wouldn't change, we'll all be having this crackberries or blackberries using now. They didn't evolve. They didn't stay relevant to customers and people, and they went away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been super interesting. Why don't you let the listeners know where they can find you if they want to connect with you?
My name, as it appears on the screen, is Sid Mohassib. You could search me. I'm everywhere. My email is sid@mohassib.com. My site is mohassib.com, and you can find me, my books. I have a few TED Talks that you may find interesting, about change and about evolvement and about entrepreneurship and so forth. And I've got lots of articles on Newsweek and The Hill and foreign policy. And uh, so again, I'm old, so I write, I share, and I hope to. People ask me, so what do you sell? What do you want to do? What is your objective? My objective of being Mike with you is to provoke people to evolve, provoke people that they are a lot more than what they see in the mirror. And the future is an amazing place to be, and technology is what's driving us, and we've got to be able to evolve. And if that message is not just for them, it's for their families, forever, wherever you go, whoever you touch. Let us all evolve to the next stage of what we can be as human beings.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your insights, and I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much for that.
Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for being here for another episode of Gaining the Technology Leadership Edge. And we'll be back next week with another episode.